and often from poor fans. So they're given basic propaganda. Them bad, and you get some one sentence thing why they're bad, and that's good enough. It's never elaborated upon. But those in the planning departments up there, like the neocons too, they all know this stuff. It's a different dimension you're in there, where they talk about calmly and how they plan it step by step to get everybody involved and every country involved in it. And literally, what the cost will be, not just financially, and the profits, by the way, as well. Yeah. But also the slaughter, the so-called collateral damage, they call it. What it'll be. Thousands or maybe millions of people, quite calmly. And they can go home at night and sleep well. And they can't tell that to the troops. Because when you see things so cold-bloodedly planned out in advance, including the lies of propaganda to be used, it might take a year, 2 years of propaganda to work up and to get the public ready for your war, to accept it. Then you couldn't have the troops all knowing the same thing, because then you see, here they go with this propaganda. And their heart wouldn't be into fighting. But the ones at the top are a different breed altogether. And slaughter is the game. There are people right now up there who are got incredible records for slaughtering people, even in the last few episodes of it all in the US. You've got that psychopath Blair in Britain flapping his arms again. That was the first sign that Britain was definitely going to go to war too, along with the US, when they pulled him back out. But, as I say, what I'm saying here is that it's the same characters who plan generations of brainwashing. Here's the brainwashing we must give this bunch. In 20 years, we must start them on this part of the brainwashing to get the next 50 years planning. So this is how this worked out. For those who don't, most folk don't know this. They haven't a clue. It's the same with when the war starts. They're given some fake nonsense like, oh my God, the Gulf of Tonkin, somebody may have seen torpedoes in the water, maybe not, we don't know. So the seas were so bad at the time. That would do, you see. That was what they agreed upon would be okay for starting a war. They killed, over 1 million Vietnamese. And multi-thousands of young Americans. All planned. And you're seeing the same thing too with Syria, because Syria's been on the list. I was looking through the old stuff from the 90s of the same countries involved again, and same headlines, same exact headlines. Syria and Iran and a few other ones have to be taken out. Same ones, exactly. By the same people. And we're all living in Groundhog Day, watching it all again, for those who remember it. But the public are not supposed to know that. They're supposed to think that Syria is it's the most evil empire, just like Saddam Hussein, and was a great Satan, and and Gaddafi before him, when Reagan was in, all backed by the neocons. Read them up; it's no secret, no conspiracy here. It's fascinating to me to watch the propaganda being put out there, and understand too the general population in their natural humanity, which are so well studied. We don't want to sit and dwell on nasty things all the time. We crack up. And they know that at the top. When they give you many other things at home to worry about at the same time, that diverts you off from thinking about the big things that are going to come down the pike. Nothing new in this. There's nothing new in the techniques, but the amount of it in this day and age is phenomenal. I think there's universities that churn out thousands every year, people who are recruited by these people. And that is true. There are multi-level layers of organizations that sound very American or very British, and they're actually private, often owned by another country. Anyway, I'll get back to this article here. It's a very good article here of how everyone's been divided. And they're not taught real history anymore. They're taught simply to hate this group or that group. They're actually told who to hate. At university, even before they get to university. When you see that, this is warfare you're seeing here, when you're taught to hate, and children are getting taught to hate. You're looking at real mandated, authorized psychological warfare, which never ends up in a good fashion. Generally ends up as real war, or people slaughtering each other. That's got to stop. Because it's coming from, you all know it's happening, don't you? You all know it. It's been taught and mandated. Yep. And it's time people get off this victim pyramid here to get to the top and start to accept the fact that, hey, I don't know anybody else of most countries that had a great life, that great. We didn't get Disneyland where I came from. Anything but. But anyway, back to the article again. I'm getting distracted here. As I say, it's a good article to read to give you an idea, because he puts it in a nutshell, really, how the technique works. He's lived long enough to study it all himself, too. And it's a good idea of psychological warfare as well. But we are going through an awful time where you see it all emerging again as they get ready to hit the same list of countries that haven't been finished off yet from the first list back in the late 90s. And then starting with 9/11, and then they went to operation. Then they got their Pearl Harbor event, and away they went. And they tried it again with Syria again, because they made this nonsense. Oh, the big start of it all will be chemical weapons, because that's what Obama agreed upon.
We had the white helmets, a complete propaganda construct in Syria. They end up getting an Academy Award.
And the Oscar goes to... Okay, the white helmets.
I am Mohammed Kir Daknish, the father of Omran. We have been in so much turmoil in eastern Aleppo because of the insurgents and because of the issues they made propaganda about. The boy, thank God, is all right. He had minor injury. We were sitting in our house like this. Omran and I were spending time having fun on our cell phones. Then the strike happened. I was busy saving my family while the insurgents seized the opportunity and filmed my family when they were escaping the house for the sake of propaganda. Thank God the situation is now improving. The army is advancing and has liberated the area so we could return to our homes.
Whenever food aid was brought into East Aleppo, the white helmets and the rebels would take it all for themselves. They give us nothing, not even bread.
They would bring cameras and explosives, something to destroy, for example, this building here. They'd find people in the streets and promise them money or food to say whatever they needed.
So they'll keep getting the fake chemical weapons until the war starts, obviously. That's why it was given, you see. It says, Mad Dog Hibs Mattis also dropped Syria chemical weapons bombshell, and he says, we have no evidence that it actually happened. I'll put that one up too. Another one too, Israel's wrapping it up too. They're ramping up the whole propaganda against Iran as well, because they want them all to... It says, Israel Defense Minister threatens Iran. The Iranian regime is in its final days. This is war rhetoric, you're saying. And a lot of the world that knows what's going on is sitting biting its nails, because if Israel hits it first, they know darn well the US is going to go in, you see. The US will definitely go in. We're all along for the ride to pay for all, I suppose. And another one, if Iran hits Tel Aviv, will hit Tehran, Defense Minister tells the Saudi paper. So they're all really, it's all war talk all the time. You're supposed to be terribly afraid of it all too. I'll tell you another thing too in psychological warfare. They know this. It's just incredible. When I was reading about how much they study us, phenomenal. Even in World War I, we were being studied so intricately. Just even folk who were on starvation diets in the UK and so on. Julian Huxley mentions it in one of his writings, because he was part of the control freak group. And he also was one of the founding members of Planned Parenthood for killing off the working class population that was superfluous. But he did mention as well that it was quite fascinating. He thought that, for instance, suicides dropped off in time of warfare. I think Bertrand Russell also mentioned the same kind of thing, because they're fascinated by what affects us. And anything that's different is a great time to study us, our behaviour, like we're little test mice or rats or whatever. And that's what they found out too. When there's a cause, a national cause or a tribal cause, and it's really tribal, no matter what country you're in, even if you're a mixed tribe, it makes no difference, you're a tribe in an area, then you all pull together through really nasty circumstances, even starvation at times too, and rationing. But there's a cause, and folk don't get so depressed and commit suicide. Isn't that interesting? According to them anyway. But what I'm getting at is the fact that nothing out there that you see is the way it's portrayed to you that it actually is. I can remember in a show in the late 90s, I mentioned that it was up to one generation, in a very short window, to spread the truth. And I knew as it came out too, there'd be other ones that came up pretending to be the greatest and well-financed opposition, you might say, of regular media and so on, pretending to be for the people, that would see all the right things initially, then way off back and take you back into the loop and get run by the usual masters, you might say. So I said that in the late 90s there'd be a short window, a very short window, to put out the information. And the person asked me, well, what about the young? I says, well, yeah, some young might know, hopefully there's some who have the ability. I've had over the years since then people who've gone through university who've taken information, they've used it to get their degrees from my talks. Some of them have actually got great jobs, but working for all the tyrants on the planet, unfortunately. So you can't count on folk just understanding what it is. There are psychopaths out there too that will take the information and use it for their own benefit, naturally, and that's how it works. But there's always some that will pass it on, hopefully, even if it becomes very dangerous to even know it. And it is becoming dangerous to know different things today. Never mind in public, because with the trained fanatics out there, they're ready to pounce on you just for opening your mouth and stuff. And that's how finely tuned it all is right now. It's going to be a knife edge to an extent. But also the authorities at the top have made sure this has been allowed, and they've trained it this way by design. So I said, it's up to those who know right now to try to make a change right now, if they're going to make a change at all. Because they'll close it so quickly after a few years, and they'll give you, it's like mirror images that copy what you're saying. And actually, they'll just take what you're saying, never mention you, but then warp it round, and then before you know it, you're getting run by the same bunch that keeps bringing the wars. Because nothing out there really is what it appears to be. We're in a very dangerous time. So as I say, anyway, Iran, they use the stuff about Tel Aviv threatening to take out Iran. In the 90s too, right after 9/11, you also had the first strike, And in other words, they would strike enemies before they'd ever think of striking you. If you suspect down the road they might strike you, then they took the first strike policy. The US copied Israel at the time. In fact, it said in the papers back then. I've got the articles still here today. And that is the policy. In other words, if we suspect this group might down the road turn on us, let's just take them out now. However, what they don't say is, if we plan to take out or even take this country or take their country off these people, then they'll get angry. So it's best if we take them out now before we take their country over, blah, blah, and get them to, you see? It's all strategy, isn't it? All strategy. And there are people who will balance the whole world on a knife's edge to get what they want. Now, again, they've got a population in the world today, and a lot of them haven't known a terrible, terrible hunger. They haven't known terrible poverty. We've been living in since about the late 80s, perhaps, in the Western world, where in an era where there's more credit cards dished out than ever before. And that's helped people get over all the bumps that otherwise that have floored them or put them on the street. And we adapt so quickly to what we think is not too bad a system. Whereas just before it was terrible for a lot of people in different countries. Absolutely terrible. But people do forget so quickly. They really, really do. And because of that, they've been taught and trained to look at the bright side of things, the good thing. Oh, don't look at that, it's negative. I've given talks on the psychological warfare, actually. They promote a lot of this stuff, positive thinking. Don't look at the negative. Just look at good things. Don't be because that takes. You understand how many people could have understood what was going on if they hadn't fallen for all this indoctrination. The same goes for all this wellness idea. Where do you think all that came from? Mandated from the very top. where they do surveys on wellness. Doesn't matter if you're poor, but how's your wellness? What is wellness? Our masters want to understand if we're going to go along and just be happy, even if you got nothing, as long as you feel good about it. They give you drugs for that. They're actually talking about it too, by the way. Give you drugs and you feel great. It doesn't matter what condition you're living in or anything else. You have no idea how bad it really is. And most folks will say, well, shy off. I don't want to look at that. It's too negative. It's too negative. And that's other folk going to be slaughtered, not you, maybe. We don't know yet. And that's what they might just push us into, is another big Cold War. And the threat of nuclear annihilation. There's money to be made in that, big time for those at the top again. They never lose. See, it's not your system, it's theirs. And also, this one here, Washington is using currency war to destabilize Iran. It goes on all the time. If the big boys ever take a look at you, your little spot of land or whatever, they'll do the same thing against you. It is everybody's concern. It really is. Because of that. Another article too we mention here is the Bank for International Settlements, the one that's really running the planet at the moment on behalf of the World Bank, the private bank. These are all private banks set up by the Royal Institute for International Affairs, Council on Foreign Relations, that run the world. And they mentioned recently that it's a vague statement, but top economists apparently understand it. It's to do with the bail-ins, that they're still working on the idea of grabbing folks' savings with the next crash, and a whole bunch of other things as well. So I'll put that up too. And I want to make a little mention of the white African farmers, because it's really bad. It's really, really bad what's happening right now with the threats on their lives. Some have been killed, of course, over the years. It goes on all the time. And I think the world should know that you can't just sit back and allow things to happen like that. It's the old story, who's going to come and help you when you're made a target for one or another groups to come for? Who's going to help you? It's rather awful what's happening and being actually encouraged to happen for, I guess, other people to step in too, just like South Africa. Other folks stepped in behind the scenes and helped it all to happen, and then they grabbed a lot of the diamond and gold out of there too, once they had a lot of folk move out, even Rhodesia as well. Nothing's ever as it seems, and even for those who end up doing the fighting, it's generally somebody else who benefits. So I'd like to put these articles up on the Africans too, because it's really sad what's happening. Plus, this article on Facebook, it says that artificial intelligence software can predict your future behavior, and they sell this, the predictions on your behavior, to advertisers and others. You know, it's going to go into think tanks in the military too as well, because they'll use this stuff on you. Leaked documents reveal that the social network offers firms the ability to target users based on how they may think and act in the future. Called loyalty prediction, the system guesses whether or not a user is about to stop using a product or service based on all of the data stored on their profile. By the way, it'll also guess if you're changing your opinions on things as well, too, politically or any other way, and sell it off as well to the big agencies that run the world. It says it comes just weeks after the firm disclosed information about 50 million Facebook users wrongly ended up in the hands of political consultancy Cambridge Analytica. So I'll put that up there too. Also, the eugenics, again, getting back to Julian Huxley and all the rest of them, because they're all involved in how many of you there are, the lower classes. Goldman Sachs asked in a biotech research report, I knew this was coming, is curing patients a sustainable business model? Attempt to address a touchy subject for biotech companies, especially those involved in the pioneering of gene therapy treatment cures, and could be bad for business in the long run, because it's a highly profitable treating disease until you die, rather than curing it, right? Is curing patients a sustainable business model? The potential to deliver one-shot cures is one of the most attractive aspects of gene therapy, generally engineered cell therapy and gene editing. However, such treatments offer a very different outlook with regard to recurring revenue, versus chronic therapies, analyst Salvin Richter wrote in the note to clients Tuesday. They're doing that anyway in hospitals anyway. They take your age and everything else and you put on a different category of priority according to how old you are and what your status is in life and the community and all the rest of it, or in society. Big difference it makes. Awfully big difference depending on who you are. But we're not a class-based society, are we? And we're not prejudiced against old folk, are we? Really? Huh? Oh yes, they are. Remember, the United Nations said a good global citizen is a producer and consumer. And of course, if you're retired, you're now a consumer. Here's one article here in South Africa. Are attacks on white farmers really racially motivated? Here are the facts. Yes, there's a problem with farm attacks and murders in South Africa. There's also a problem with violence and murder in the country as a whole. And it's true enough, there's masses of folk getting slaughtered pretty normally there in a sense. But it's getting worse. The types of attacks on the whites are it's horrific. And they torture them too before they kill them, a lot of them. There's an elderly woman who was, a bunch attacked her farm and into the home. And used electric drills in her knees and different parts of her body and stuff and to torture. It's death. When you see that, that's hatred. That's behind that. And it is not good at all what's really happening. Another article that says genocide and communism threaten South Africa. People, I don't care what country you're in, folk follow these massive groups and these isms that are given to them by people who are outside of it all, who will benefit from it all. But they cause hell across the planet when they do this kind of stuff. Is the killing of white farmers in South Africa a genocide? Is a big question. Of course it is, because that's the statements by some of the leaders there actually advocating it. It's not good at all. It's amazing how the world can keep quiet on it. It doesn't matter what you're being taught to think or believe about things too. The fact is, if you don't stand up for people who are going through hell anywhere across the planet, then why should anybody stand up for you if it happens to in your area to you? Understand? This is how life really is. If you don't stand up for what is right, I don't care who's getting harmed and who's doing the harming. The fact is, you've got to stop it. And you often find tie-ins between the same peoples across the planet doing things, or advocating or funding it. The world is never static, and peace is never there. When a period is passing by with not much news, believe you me, the hell is still going on somewhere. I'll put these articles up for you for those who care enough to read them. Because it's not good what's getting built up there too. And I've seen this before, many years ago, the same kind of thing. And the big forces backing this and financing it too, believe you me. There's one article too about the van driver who ran down people in Toronto on the sidewalk, deliberately too. And how the government's just jumping around trying to camouflage a lot of it, because the last thing they want is terrorism to be mentioned again. And we're going to get it regardless. I don't care who's doing it or why they're doing it. But that's one little article, and we're told really to get used to this kind of stuff across the world as it goes on, as folk do bizarre things. It kind of makes you wonder if they're going to ban driving altogether, because they'd love to, wouldn't they? It would tie in with their driverless cars as well, that won't follow instructions to run folk down, maybe. Or on the other hand, too, maybe someone can hack them and actually make it happen. Anything's possible with technology today. But as I say, remember, nothing is the way it's presented to you. And you do have to question everything. Everything, every darn thing, you got to question it. Even what you're taught is the truth about history and your own countries. I don't care what country you're in or have been in or whatever. You got to question all of it. All of it. It's like Scotland. Scotland had a long history. Long history. It was used as a battering ram from the middle of the 1700s onwards for England, for fighting across the planet, for people who didn't even know. The kind of shock troops, you might say. And even though, see, the Highlanders, for instance, were being exterminated from 1746 onwards as a policy, and their whole families, by the way, men, women, children. That's all been quietly put underground with the people. But whoever was left to survive, they could join the military. and go off and fight across the world. A lot of them too were brought into the Americas. There's even histories of regiments left. They wouldn't bring them back home. They wanted them to stay there. They went back home maybe because of a problem. Actually, see how you kill many birds with one stone. Bring them across, do the fighting for the next part of the British Empire. Leave them where they are. Don't bring them home, so they won't cause problems when they go back. And just by being there in the new place, they'll may marry or send for a woman or a wife or something. And there you go. And don't forget too, it ties right back to, you're talking about white slavery. Well, Benjamin Franklin bought his first wife off the boat from Britain. Indentured servitude, they called it. You're just a slave. You're bought and sold. Same with a lot of people in Australia. And other places too. French were at it as well. Don't think that any particular people have a monopoly on suffering. We've all had it. All of us have had it down the road. And as I say, I mean, you look at the mess of the UK after World War II, decimated from World War I. Never got out of that with the money owed. Now next week, because I haven't had time this week, but next week I'm going to give another talk on how your tax money is being used now by your government to pay off a whole bunch of new organizations, not so much you, but different layers of ones that are already existing, to do with sustainability, to manage every town and city across your country and your life completely. Big money up for grabs for all these entrepreneur types, you know, the kind who will take all your tax money to start their own, what would you call them? They're it's like the Politburo's idea of layers of civilians managing all the rest of the people. That's really what it is. And they'll get paid awfully well from the loot they're taking from the taxpayer. That's reality. That is the reality we live in. And they know everybody's data today because folk give them up all the time, all their data, private data. As I mentioned with Facebook there, just one last thing. Facebook isn't just taking all your data and selling it. They'll say that they'll take the data on your Facebook account and all your friends linked to it. It gives them permission to get to all the stuff they'll use on them too. So if you're using Facebook, you're endangering other people you know. I hope you should actually tell people that. You know that? You should tell people that if you're putting anything to do with them or what they tell you on their Facebook, then you're no friend of them at all. You really are not. You're really, really not, if you can't value the privacy of each other. Remember that. Well, from, again, global warming and 6 inches of more snow, I'm Alan Watchman, Ontario, Canada, and it's good night. And may your God or your gods go with you.